How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. Today I am stripping generation number 3 of Buccaneer Bob's rum, and I am going to make generation number 4, but I'm going to go bigger. Every generation up until now has been about 25 litres, and today we're stepping it up to... I don't know how big. We'll find out. I figure you guys probably also want an update on the Dunder pits. Oh yeah, there's 2 of them now. And how I plan on using those things later on. Welcome to Stiller, everyone. I'm Jesse, and this is the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. So if that's what you're into, if it rolls your wheel, hit the subscribe button down below, make sure you ring the notification bell, and you won't miss anything. So you can probably see over here behind me that the distiller is in operation, which is always a good feeling, and that is generation number 3 of Buccaneer Bob's rum being stripped as we speak. Side note, a huge thank you to the Lazy Plumber for hooking me up with that parrot. I cannot for the life of me figure out why I ever thought that doing a stripping run without a parrot was a good idea. I just don't know. So like I said, I'm not entirely sure how big I'm going to be going with the next Buccaneer Bob's recipe, and that is simply because I've gotten halfway through or roundabouts of a bucket of molasses. All my scales have died. I've got no batteries left, so I don't know exactly how much molasses I've got left, so I'm not sure entirely how much Buccaneer Bob's wash to make. Now what I do know is that I was roughly reaching about 1060, 1065 before adding the sugar and before allowing it to ferment. So what I'm going to do is strip this out down to about 10%, save the back set, use the back set to dissolve the molasses, add water to the dissolved molasses until I get to around 1065 and about 30 degrees. And whatever volume that is, that's how big my next batch of Buccaneer Bob's rum is going to be. We're down to about 25% on the stripping run, I think. We have a little bit of time to kill, so who wants to see my festy pits? I mean my Dunder pits, guys. Let's go have a look. First up is the Dunder pit that I showed making on the channel a little while ago. I'll put a card up top for that. This one has been cold, just at ambient temperature the whole time now. It's grown some pretty serious fluff on top, and it is starting to get some funky smells going on. Not baby spew or rotten, more like really funky sour beer. So I decided that it would be kind of fun to inoculate another Dunder pit with pretty much the same stuff that I put in the first, but to keep this one hot instead of cold and see if there's much difference, you know, after a while. This is the aquarium heater that I've been using in that bucket so far, and the reason that I wanted to use this for 2 or 3 days leading up to this was to decide whether or not I wanted to use it for my large Buccaneer Bob's ferment and for large ferments in the future. Spoiler alert, guys, I'm not going to, not yet, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is I've got a buddy stilling in Canada who got one of these or something similar and ended up totally cooking a wash because it ran away and ended up getting insanely hot. So that kind of made me wonder whether or not it was a great idea. Second, I have had it in there and had it set at 30 degrees for the last 2 days. It took hardly any time to get up to temperature, but it's been fluctuating up and down a whole lot since, sometimes being up to sort of 6 or 7 degrees too hot and sometimes being 6 or 7 degrees too cold. That's too much fluctuation for me. And number 3 is I think that I may have got one that is a little bit too energy dense. This is 200 watts. Right now it's just too much work for me, so what I'm going to do, seeing as I can't fit the large fermenter into the fridge, is use the STC, which is wired into the fridge, but essentially run the thermocouple outside of the fridge, prop the fermenter up on insulation bricks, insulate the bejesus out of it, and put a fan heater underneath as well on a really low setting, and hopefully that we'll be able to hold it at 25 degrees for a good portion of the ferment. I know as well, guys, that I have been threatening to do a video just on the STC 1000. If you do want to see that, let me know in the comments down below, because there's been a few people that want it, but honestly not that many. Anyway, the still's off. I collected down to 10%. I can put the low wines away, bust out the molasses, and get started on the big Buccaneer Bob's rum. Like I said, I wasn't exactly sure how much molasses I had, but I guessed it was probably about 10, 11 kilos, something like that. The plan was to put it into another bucket, use enough hot back set to dissolve it, tip that into the fermenter, and essentially rinse and repeat until all of the molasses was gone, and then sort of check in and decide exactly what to do after that. In the end, I did 3 batches like this, so 3 batches of molasses plus 3 batches of hot back set to dissolve it and get it into the fermenter. So I have about 30 litres in the fermenter right now. It's obviously pretty freaking hot, and it's obviously, you know, a really dense, thick syrup. What I want to do, just to sense check that I'm in the ballpark, is to take 250 mils of this, water it down until it gets to about 30 degrees, and then see what gravity I've got. So I took 250 mils and added 750 mils to it to make 1 litre, which gave me a solution at about 19 degrees and about 1052. So what that tells me is that I need to use maybe a decent amount of hot water or hot back set still, and I need to add probably a little less than 3 times what is in here already. So I guess I'm going to be adding about 80 more litres to this for a grand total of about 120 litres. Honestly, I'm not too stressed about the original gravity because if it's on the lower side, it doesn't matter. I just don't want it too high that it's going to be stressing my yeast out too much. Speaking of yeast, let me get the hot back set in here, a little bit of hot water in here, and top it up and get it to about 30 degrees, and I'll tell you what my plan is for the yeast, because I'm going to need a fair bit of it. I think it's worth noting that an easy way to get a whole lot of oxygen into your wash is to basically splash it around as you're topping up. Get as much oxygen in there as you can so the yeast can use it while it's multiplying. But essentially all I was doing here was adding hot water or cold water, taking temperature readings, deciding whether I needed more hot water or more cold water, and topping it up. I did also add 10 teaspoons of DAP. So all in all, I have 130 litres at 30 degrees and 1055. I went a little bit higher on the volume of water overall because I'm actually going to bump it up a little with a little bit of extra sugar for this run. I also added a little bit too much hot water, and I want to pitch my yeast quick, so I just topped it up with extra water. Now, yeast. Here's the plan, guys. I saved all of the yeast from generation number 3, and I figure that's almost enough. I think that's probably nearly a pitch, and I just so happen to have the leftover yeast from generation number 2, which has been in the fridge for a week and a half, so I'm actually going to pitch both of those. So I'll pitch the yeast now. I will set up the STC 1000 now with the heater as well, and I will check in with you tomorrow or the next day when fermentation has kicked off. So this is the yeast from the generation that just went through the still. It should be very vibrant yeast. I'm going to pitch that straight in there, but because I'm stepping up quite a lot in size, I am going to add the leftover yeast from the generation before as well. So here is the thermocouple from the STC 1000 going onto the barrel. You do want to insulate that so that you're really reading the liquid temperature as much as possible, not the air temperature on the outside. Anyway, so I insulated the barrel up with a whole lot of woolen blankets, which are great for this. Set the heater in place, made sure it wasn't touching anything dicey, and set the STC 1000 for 27 degrees. Alright guys, it has been about 20 hours since I pitched the yeast for this, and it's actually humming along pretty nicely. I'm pretty happy with it. It is also holding its temperature really well. So the blankets, the insulation, and the heater and the SDC are doing their job, and the yeast is doing their job too. So before I go anywhere, once again, I need to thank the Patreons. Thank you so much, guys. And I will be finally doing the recipe files, the Excel files for you. I'll put that up on Patreon for those that get them. Just remember that this is not my recipe. It is Buccaneer Bob's recipe, so credit to him. Hope you've had a blast, guys. I certainly have. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you really liked the video, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.